This is Nikki G and welcome to Better Commander. It's time, it's finally here. We waited all year and now it's another MTG standard set. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. This one has some really interesting EDH cards and will go in Wooburg order. I won't be covering every single card, that would take forever, but I'll focus on those that will be played in Commander decks and those that I think are interesting. Hopefully we'll hit some sleepers that'll make you say wow. This set has a lot of uncommons that are exciting for me. Let's see if you agree. I'm not going to go over the 5-color dragons. I think they're a little bland, to be honest. I think they fit in a lot of decks. They have great creature types. They're really cool, but nothing really excited me. So white got some bangers. Let's take a look at what white got in this set. Brilliant Restoration. 3 white sorcery. Return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is a very costly, very splashy spell and can be extremely impactful in white-based enchantment decks. The 4 white pips makes casting difficult, but if you have a good mana base, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. I was surprised to see an updated version of the reserve list card Replenish. If this ends up being a bulk rare, I'd definitely buy one for a future deck. I don't have one that this fits into right now, but this is an extremely powerful effect. Cloudsteel Kirin. 2 and a white. Artifact creature equipment Kirin. Flying. Equipped creature has flying and you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Reconfigure for 5. This is a 3/2. I can see this slotting into some equipment decks, especially those that cheat equip costs. This could slot into Sir Gwyn, any decks using Hammer of Nazan or Sigarda's Aid. The downside with these equipment creatures is that they can be removed by both artifact removal and creature removal before they're equipped. This is not an overly powerful effect and it's easily removed. However, it's a fun card. I like it because it seems fun, and I might put it in one of my decks, one of my white equipment decks for sure. Farewell. This is a beautiful card by Seb McKinnon. 4 white sorcery. Choose one or more. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, or exile all graveyards. So this is the most versatile board wipe that I've ever seen in the history of MTG. It exiles, it can hit basically anything except for lands. It's a 6-mana sorcery speed, exile all graveyards. It's a bit steep for if you just want graveyard hate when cheaper options exist, but the versatility on this card is really wild. There are decks where 2 or 3 enchantments are winning the game and you can take those out. Smothering Tithe, Ristic Study, things like that. Or if you're playing an enchantment deck, you can exile everything else. This is a fantastic card. Light Paws, Emperor's Voice. 1 and a white for a legendary creature, Fox Advisor. He's a 2/2. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura and with a different name than each aura you control. Not a problem in Commander. Put that card onto the battlefield and attach to Light Paws, Emperor's Voice, then shuffle. This is fantastic in an aura deck or any deck where you're shooting up creatures with auras. It's also a fantastic commander by itself. It'd be very powerful. This may be the deck that Brilliant Restoration goes in. You could run cards like Arrest, Darksteel Mutation, go find Gift of Immortality, Chomano's Blessing. I may do a deck tech with this guy. It seems like a lot of fun and very powerful. Lion Sash for 1 and a white. Artifact creature, Equipment Cat. It's a 1/1. 1 white mana, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. When it's equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Has reconfigured for 2. This is a great card. Solid role player in equipment decks, +1 counter decks, and artifact decks. This is a color shifted Scavenging Ooze, and it has synergy with 3 archetypes and provides great cheap graveyard removal. This is going to see Commander play. Graveyard hate has become more important as Commander has become more popular. This particular ability is also great to get rid of recurable fetch lands and decks that run Crucible of Worlds. Solid pickup for sure. Alright, we'll touch on some of the uncommons here. Touch the Spirit Realm, 2 white for an enchantment. Whenever Touch the Spirit Realm enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until Touch the Spirit Realm leaves the battlefield. Channel for 1 and a white. Discard it. Exile target artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is a very versatile removal spell in a blink deck. These cards aren't fantastic in Commander, the enchantments that exile, because They don't work on commanders. They just go to the command zone. And if you exile an opponent's creature with an ETB, they just get to double dip on that trigger when it comes back when they inevitably destroy your enchantment. However, exiling a Blood Artist or a creature that's central to a combo can gum up an opponent's game plan. And in a Blink deck, this can be more useful than, say, an Ephemerate. I would run this over Cloud Shift for sure. Let's move on to black. Blade of the Oni, 1 in black for an artifact creature equipment demon. It's a 3/1 with menace. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 5/5, has menace, and is a black demon in addition to its other colors and types. Reconfigure for 2 black. So this is cheap for what it does, but the reconfigure cost is a bit high. I would consider running this in equipment deck where we can cheat the equip cost. Sir Gwyn already has menace and is also a 5/5, so I'm not sure where this fits. I am unaware of a black color identity commander that can utilize this fully, but I would pick one up for the coolness factor and maybe a future deck. Cool card. Alright, forgive my pronunciation. Tatsunari, Soda Rider, 2 in a black, legendary creature, human ninja. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, if you don't control a creature named Kami, create Kami, a legendary 3/3 black and green frog creature token. With whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. 1 and a Simic mana. Tatsunari, Toad Rider, and target frog you control can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with flying or reach. It's a 3/3. Sultai Color Identity, this is an interesting enchantment-based drain effect commander. I think this is a cool card. It's a great build around. I can see this using durable combat auras like Umbras and Rancor to pump up your evasive commander for a commander damage win. You could also lean into big mana and draw to cast a lot of cheap enchantments. And go off, Queen. Dockside Chef, 1 black mana. Enchantment creature, human citizen. For 1 in a black, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card. It's a 1/2. So it's a 1/2 for 1 mana. That's a sack outlet. 1 in a black for 1 card is not a terrible rate, and this guy's an enchantment as well. This is a cool card. I'm not really sure where it goes, but I keep my eye on sack outlets, and this might also go in Tatsunari. Unforgiving One, 2 in a black. It's a creature spirit. It's 2/3 with menace. Whenever Unforgiving One attacks, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of modified creatures you control. This is repeatable evasive recursion that makes you jump through a lot of hoops to get your creature back. In most decks, I'd rather just get something back with Animate Dead or Necromancy, but in a +1/+1 deck with cheap creatures, this can be a house. Think Marchese of the Black Rose. Alright, on to blue. Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh, 2 blue, a legendary planeswalker Tezzeret. The first activated ability of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate. That's awesome. +1, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. Also awesome. -2, target artifact becomes an artifact creature. If it isn't a vehicle, it has base power and toughness 4/4. -6, you get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card. It starts with 4 loyalty. I never saw a Tezzeret I didn't like. This thing's pretty awesome. This static ability is very useful, and the plus and minus abilities and a huge draw engine emblem. I mean, this guy has it all. If I had one of these, I'd run it for sure in a blue-red equipment deck. I'd also run it in a blue artifact deck. This will definitely attract an opponent's attention and needs an answer in a couple turns. I can hear my buddies saying, Tezzeret, huh? That's not good. Tameshi, Reality Architect. She graduated architect school in Kamigawa. She's 2 in a blue, legendary creature, Moonfolk Wizard. Whenever 1 or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So X and a white, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Return target artifact or enchantment card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. This is a 2/3. The color's blue, color identity is white-blue. This is a really cool bounce commander. I think it's pretty awesome, and there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, a lot of restrictions. It's non-creature permanents. So this is kind of adds draw a card to your bounce spells. Definitely a build around commander with instants and payoffs. This would be a really fun deck to do a deck tech on. The Reality Chip, this is one of my favorite cards in the set, not because it's super powerful, but I just think it's flavorful and cool looking. So it's 1 and a blue for a legendary artifact creature, Equipment Jellyfish. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. As long as Reality Chip is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. That's awesome. It's got Reconfigure for 2 and a blue, and it's a 0/4. I really like this card. I think it might be because it's a jellyfish. I can see this working in a blue equipment deck for card advantage, or as a commander in a control shell with a top deck manipulation like Yannette, something like that. This is a really cool, interesting card, and I'll definitely be picking up a copy. Let's take a look at some uncommons. Acquisition Octopus, 2 and a blue. Artifact creature, equipment Octopus. Whenever Acquisition Octopus or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. It's got Reconfigure for 2. And the flavor text, you can never have too many arms. It's a 2/2. This is a durable equipment that fits really well into any deck that would use Rogue's Gloves or Sea Dasher Octopus. You need artifact or equipment synergies. This is a bit more narrow of a card, but it caught my eye for a budget Dalikos deck. I think this is a really cool card. March of Swirling Mist, X and a blue for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of blue cards from your hand. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. Up to X target creatures phase out. We've been seeing the return of phasing over the last few years, and this is a great way to save yourself from a Cyclonic Rift, or your creatures rather, or a board wipe. You can save your Voltron commander plus all the equipment or auras that are attached to it for 2 mana, or you can phase out an opponent's Alpha Strike to buy yourself a turn. This is a really cool, versatile instant. The more effects we get like this, the closer we are to a critical mass of phasing cards. Prosperous Thief, 2 and a blue, creature human ninja. It's got ninjutsu for 1 and a blue. You can return an unblocked creature you control to hand, put this card onto the battlefield from your hand tapped and attacking. Whenever 1 or more ninja or rogue creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasured token. This is it's a 3/2. It's a really solid role player in a ninja or rogue deck. Not much else to say, but I just thought it was a cool, interesting card. Alright, on to red, Goro, Disciple of Ryusei. 1 and a red for a legendary creature, Goblin Samurai 2/2. 1 red mana. Creatures you control gain haste until the end of turn, and 3 red, create a 5/5 Dragon Spirit creature token with flying. Activate only if you control an attacking modified creature. This is a decent, cheap haste enabler that has a mana sink for later in the game. It's a solid 2-drop that would be great in a deck that needs haste. It'd be great in a Goblin deck. It'd also be great in a +1/+1 counter deck that exists in red. Lizard Blades, this is another one of my favorites. 1 and a red for an artifact creature, Equipment Lizard. Has double strike, it's a 1/1. Equipped creature has double strike, and it's got Reconfigure 2. This is probably the best of the equipment creatures I've seen. The card and the Reconfigure cost are cheap. It fits so well into an equipment deck where your commander or one of the creatures that you're suiting up needs double strike. It's a creature with double strike, so this can get out of hand being a target for other equipment as well. I'm a big fan of this card. Scrap Welder out here doing a Goblin Welder impression. It's 2 and a red for a creature, Goblin Artificer. It's a 3/3. Tap, sacrifice an artifact with mana value X, return target artifact card with a mana value less than X from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until the end of turn. This is a poor Goblin Welder, although the power and toughness are a little higher. I think this is more of a limited card. In a Goblin Artifact Recursion deck, I don't know if that exists. This is a redundant effect with Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder, but it's a worse version in most respects. If you definitely need a redundant version, you can put this in your deck if your deck is desperate for it. It can definitely be solid. Osgir may have a use for this. Bronze Plate Boar, 2 and a red for an artifact creature, Equipment Boar. Has Trample, it's a 3/2. Equipped creature gets +3/+2 and has Trample. It has Reconfigure 5. That Reconfigure cost is horrific. I would only use this in a deck where we can cheat that, and even then it's kind of middling. I just thought this was a cool card. I'll probably be picking up a copy, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be using it at present. Rabbit Battery. Now we're cooking. Red mana, artifact creature, equipment rabbit. It's a 1/1, has haste. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has haste and reconfigure for just a red mana. So I use Mark of Fury, which is another great card, by the way, in my Saheeli deck, which is artifact themed and is all about powering out, big Eldrazi if it betrays, stuff like that. Often I want my big crazy creatures swinging in with haste. So this is going to be replacing Mark of Fury in that deck. This increases my artifact count and is a really cool little card. I'm going to pick up a couple copies because I think it's great. It's also solid in equipment decks. All right, very exciting. On to green. Kodama of the West Tree. 2 and a green for a legendary creature spirit. 3/3 with a reach. Modified creatures you control have trample. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This is the modified creature commander, and it's very interesting. This thing digs into counters, landfall, auras, equipment. Really cool effect in green and gives you a lot of directions to go to. Basically, you can go west. Springleaf Avenger, 3 green for a creature insect ninja. It's a 6/5. Ninjutsu, 3 and a green. Whenever Springleaf Avenger deals combat damage to a player, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Dang, this guy's got a stat line. This is a really great card in any evasive deck. If you have insects, flying creatures, this has Commander as a format written all over it. Too bad it doesn't have evasion. You'd have to give it evasion, but then once it's out on the battlefield, it just kind of sits there. I'm not sure what deck this goes in, but it's a really cool card. I'm unaware of any green ninjutsu commanders. Weaver of Harmony, 1 and a green, enchantment creature, snake druid. It's a 2/2. Other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1. Green tap. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. So activated or triggered ability, that's pretty awesome. This is great in an enchantment deck, especially if you have one that leans into this. It's worth noting that Xenagos is an enchantment, Karametra is an enchantment. They both have triggered abilities. This guy would go great in those decks. Let's take a look at some artifacts. Eater of Virtue. It costs 1 mana, legendary artifact equipment. When equipped creature dies, exile it. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. As long as a card exiled with Eater of Virtue has flying, equipped creature has flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Protection, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance, and the equip cost is 1. I like the costs of the artifact and the equip costs. It's so clunky. I think this would fit in certain commander decks that just want cheap equipment, but you lose access to any graveyard recursion that you have. It's an interesting card. I think it's really cool, and I'll definitely pick up a copy. Reckoner Bankbuster. This is 2 colorless mana artifact creature vehicle. It's a 4/4. It has crew 3. Reckoner Bankbuster enters the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it. Pay 2 and tap, remove a charge counter from Reckoner Bankbuster, draw a card. Then, if there are no charge counters on Reckoner Bankbuster, create a treasure token and a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. This is a really interesting card with a lot of text. Getting this out early and accessing an extra card for 2 mana per turn is okay. We have Endless Atlas, Tome of Legends. Those see a lot of play. This may be better than both, honestly, as it evades board wipes and can be crewed later for a modestly big beater, along with a treasure token. It's a weird card. That's pretty much the formula for a card I'd buy and try out. Onto multicolored. Hanada Dawn Crowned. 1, a blue, a red, and a white. Legendary creature, Kirin Spirit. Flying and trample. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. Hope races on Sunlit Hooves. This guy's a 4/4. This is a dope spell slinger commander. It has flying and trample and discounts your targeted spells. Imagine destroying every treasure, blood, clue, food for 1 red mana with by force. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This is a new design space, very powerful, and I will be building a deck with this for sure. Ishin, 2 heavens is 1. red, white, and black for a legendary creature, Human Samurai. It's a 3/4. If a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Trained by the Imperials but disillusioned by their rigidity, he gave his heart and his swords to the Asari Uprising. Someone in my play group has already built this beast. We all know it's super powerful. It's a remove on-site commander for sure. There are so many life drains effects and it adds up very quickly. This is a card that we're all very afraid of right now. Satoru Umazawa, 1 blue and a black for a legendary creature, Human Ninja. It's a 2/4. Whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. This ability triggers only once per turn. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu, 2, a blue and a black. This seems like a fun commander. It would play out similarly to Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. You would have tension between cheap, unblockable creatures and creatures who just end someone's career. The Blightsteel Ninja Dream can finally come true. You would want to stack your deck with damage trigger creatures and ETB trigger creatures, and that deck seems fun and actually pretty fair. I like this card. Alright, let's take a look at a really cool uncommon. Enthusiastic Mechanaut for a blue and a red. Artifact creature, Goblin Artificer. It's a 2/2 with flying. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. I think this guy's a solid jobber in artifact decks. It increases your artifact count. It's an artifact creature. This is a really sweet card. It's an uncommon, and he's awesome looking as well. The rare land cycle is a slam dunk in this set. All of them offer some utility and none come into play tapped. They're legendary as well. We all know this can be a blessing and a curse. Green obviously got the best one. These will be sought after and valuable, and the green one's already pre-selling for like $40. There are a few reasons not to run these if you're running basics. They are kind of a modal spell that doesn't take up a spell slot. I think it's odd how the green land is somehow head and shoulders above the rest. It's like, hey, here's some artifacts, and then they're like, oh, Grey Henge. And they're like, hey, here's some utility lands. Like, oh, here's Boseiju. Overall, I think this is a great set. There's a lot of uncommons that really rip. I'm really interested to see where Boseiju settles. I don't think it's a $40 card, but who knows. There are a lot of other cards I'm looking forward to that I didn't touch on, but let me know what you are looking forward to in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and this is going to be Nikki G from Better Commander, signing off.